Chapter 2105. Seeing that she was no longer talking, the old man stroked his beard and coughed lightly. Although this old man doesn't have a disciple, this old man's standards are quite high. Although his talent is not bad, he still can't reach this old man's standards, so he. Fengjiu sat quietly and ignored him. The old man felt bored and did not say anything else. At the same time, in the main courtyard of the West residence, Zhuechui was talking to his wife when he saw a familiar figure walk in from the corner of his eye. Both of them were stunned when they saw the person. Junyue? You're back? Both of them stood up and walked toward their eldest son. Didn't you go out to train with the Hunyuan Immortal Lord? Why did you suddenly come back? Did something happen? Father, mother. Zhuechui bowed to both of them and greeted them. He looked at his parents and paused for a moment before saying, I did come back because of something. What is it? Could it be that you ran into some trouble outside? Or did the Hunyuan Immortal Lord chase you back? His mother asked worriedly. Looking at her son who had not returned home for a long time, she felt sorry for him. Did you suffer outside? Look at you, you've lost weight. Mother, I'm fine, Zhuechui said, not knowing what to say. Seeing this, his father asked, Then what's the reason? Why did you come back? Looking at the worried faces of his parents, he took a deep breath and said in a steady voice, Dad, Mom, I have news of grandfather. Hearing this, both of them were stunned. While what? Grandfather, I have news of grandfather, my biological grandfather, he said slowly. Looking at his stunned father, he said, When I went to the volcano forest with the Hunyuan Immortal Lord, I met grandfather's disciple and learned about grandfather from her, so this time. He spoke slowly and briefly explained the matter. Looking at his father, who was still in a daze for a long time, he said, She said that grandfather's wish is to know how his descendants are doing, so she came to see you on behalf of grandfather. He paused for a moment and said, Moreover, grandmother asked me to let her know if I had any news. This time, I came back because I wanted her to meet grandmother. Zhuechui listened in a daze, unable to describe the feelings in his heart. Finally, there was news of his father? Father? To him, it was so familiar yet so strange. His blood flowed in his body. It was the inheritance of his bloodline. However, he had never seen his father. He did not know anything about his father. He only knew that every time his mother thought of his father, she would cry silently. Now there was finally news of his father, saying that his father's disciple had come to visit them on behalf of his father. Hearing this, he couldn't help but laugh. Haha, there's actually news of him? His laughter was so sorrowful, so sorrowful. Although he was smiling, his expression was uglier than if he were crying. Master, since that's the case, let's go and meet them, Zhuechui's mother said softly as she patted Zhuechui's hand to comfort him. Chapter 2106. Up ahead. He nodded. He also knows a little about this. Zhuechui said, Let's go take a look. He said to his wife, You stay here. There's no need to go. Alright, then you and your father should hurry over. Don't let them wait too long. I'll get the kitchen to prepare the food. Madame Zhua signaled for them to hurry. Thus, the father and son went forward. When they arrived at the front and entered the hall, Zhuechui saw Hunyuan Zi sitting in the middle of the hall leisurely drinking wine. Therefore, he shifted his gaze to the young man beside him. When he saw the young man, he was a little surprised. That young man was dressed in green, sitting there quietly with a pensive look on his face. No one knew what he was thinking about. When he saw them come in, he raised his eyes to look at them. A trace of surprise flashed across his eyes, and his clear eyes quietly sized them up. This was his father's disciple? How could he be so young? He was a little surprised. He originally thought that his father's disciple would be around his age, but he didn't expect him to be such a young man. Such a young man really surprised him. Immortal sir. He bowed to Hunyuan Zi and said with a smile, I didn't expect to see you again so soon. Yes. This old man also didn't expect to come to your house so soon. Hunyuan Zi squinted his eyes and looked at him with a smile. He took a sip of wine, glanced at Feng Jiu, and said to Zhuo Chuwei, but she's the one who's looking for you today, not this old man. Just treat this old man as invisible. Hearing this, the smile on Zhuo Chuwei's face froze. He thought to himself, this immortal sir is still so direct. Feng Jiu, this is my father, Zhuo Chuwei. Zhuo Junyue introduced his father to Feng Jiu. Master Zhuo. Feng Jiu bowed and greeted. Young Master Feng, please take a seat. Zhuo Chuwei gestured and sat down. Master Zhuo, I'd like to see the old madam. Please accompany me, she said directly. Upon hearing this, Zhuo Chuwei paused for a moment before he looked at Feng Jiu and said, Young Master Feng, my son has already told me what happened. However, I still have a few questions for you. Excuse me, she said. You said that your master's name is Chu Batian, a famous character in the lower continents. Then, do you know if their names are similar? How can you be sure that your master is my father? Hearing this, Feng Jiu's lips curled into a smile. Let's not talk about other things. Just your appearance alone is 70 to 80% similar to your father's. If I wasn't too sure before, but after seeing your appearance, I can already confirm that you are his descendant. Hearing this, Zhuo Chuwei was slightly stunned. Did he resemble his father at all? It turned out that he and his father were quite similar. It turned out that his father's appearance was like this. Pausing for a moment, he looked at the youth in front of him and muttered to himself, so what if we find his descendants? He's no longer here, so what does it matter to him what happens to us? I heard that your second son's legs aren't good? I know a little about medicine, so I can take a look at him. She didn't answer his question. Chapter 2107. Her master had more or less the same intentions back then. It was just that she did not want to be too full of herself. However, if they wanted to set up their own residence in the city or somewhere else that belonged to the Chu family, she would do her best to help. Furthermore, her second son could not stand up. If she could treat him, she would naturally help him. After all, he was her master's descendant. As long as he was not an evil person, as long as he was not a vicious person, she would help him if she could. Furthermore, Feng Jiu smiled and looked at the dazed Zhuo Yuechuan. I believe that old madam still remembers my master in her heart. Otherwise, your name would not be Chu Wei. Once he said this, the hall fell silent. Zhuo Chuwei lowered his eyes in a daze. Zhuo Junyue also stood there quietly. No one knew what he was thinking. Seeing this scene, the old man at the side coughed softly and spoke. Bring her to see old madam first. Later, go and see Junyue's younger brother. Her medical skills are indeed good. Perhaps there will be some hope. As the old man spoke, he looked at the father and son pair. Although he is no longer around, the fact that he could tell his disciple this proves that he still has you, his descendants, in his heart. Sometimes, many things are unpredictable. Perhaps even he himself did not expect that such a thing would happen back then. To you, it is only a story that you heard from others. To him, it was a personal experience. Anyone who had encountered the tragedy of having their entire family wiped out would not feel good. Since so many years had passed and his descendants had already married and had children, those things could only be flipped over like flipping through a book. There was no longer any discussion about who was right and who was wrong. After a long silence, Zhuo Chuwei said to Feng Jiu, "Come with me. I will bring you to see my mother." "Father, if we bring her over like this, second uncle will definitely find it strange. Perhaps even grandfather will know about this." The grandfather he was referring to was naturally the Zhuo family's old master. Although he had news of his biological grandfather, and found his successor, It was indeed not good to bring her to see his grandmother like this. Hearing this, Zhuechui pondered for a moment and nodded. That's right. Mother has been cultivating in seclusion for many years. If we suddenly bring someone over like this, it will definitely alarm the people in the East Mansion. If they ask, "Old man, go and visit old madam," just bring them all over. After all, I've met old madam a few times. It shouldn't be a problem for me to go over, the old man said with a smile. He winked at Feng Jiu and smiled, as if saying, "Look, I'm covering for you." Then, immortal, Zhuechui said as he bowed to the old man. No trouble at all. He waved his hand and said with a smile, let's go now." With that, he took the lead and walked out. Seeing this, the three to the Zhuas, of course, Zhua meanwhile, in the East Mansion. "Oh? You mean the Hunyuan Immortal Lord is here?" The current head of the Zhua family, the second uncle that Zhua Junyue referred to, was surprised when he heard this news. Does that mean Junyue is also back? Chapter 2108. Hearing this, he nodded and ordered, "Then let the mansion prepare. Invite them to the East Mansion for a gathering tonight. Speaking of which, it has been a long time since my eldest brother left the West Mansion." Speaking of this, he sighed softly and waved his hand, indicating for the elder to leave. "Yes," the old man replied and then left respectfully. Zhua family head sat in the main seat, deep in thought. He thought of how his eldest brother's family had been isolated from the rest of the world in the West Mansion. Although they were all in the Zhua family, his eldest brother's family gave off the feeling that they were living under someone else's roof. He was not the only one who felt this way. He believed that everyone in the East Mansion felt the same way. As for the rumors that had been circulating in the mansion all these years, he had turned a blind eye and ignored them. Even if his eldest brother was not his father's son, he was still his mother's son, his half-brother. However, the family elders did not think so. They were worried that his eldest brother would interfere in the Zhua family's affairs, and that the Zhua family would fall into the hands of outsiders. Therefore, they did not let his eldest brother interfere in the Zhua family's affairs and even secretly suppressed him. His eldest brother had been ordinary all these years and did not seem to be outstanding. The only thing that surprised him was that Junyu somehow knew the Hunyuan Immortal Lord. Their family also seemed to have a good relationship with the Hunyuan Immortal Lord. Occasionally, the Hunyuan Immortal Lord would visit the West Mansion. Other than that, there was nothing else. Just as he was deep in thought, he saw the steward walk in from outside. Family head. The old steward walked up and greeted him respectfully. He came back to his senses and looked at the old steward, asking, "What's wrong?" Family head, the first master of the West Mansion and the others went to the old madam's courtyard. The old steward said, "It's normal for my eldest brother to visit my mother. What's the fuss about?" he said casually. However, he paused and looked at the old steward, asking, "Who else went besides the first master?" "The first master and first master, the Hunyuan Immortal Lord and a youth in green." Hearing this, he was slightly startled. The Hunyuan Immortal Lord and a youth in green? Didn't they say that the youth in green only came with the Immortal Lord? Why did they go to the old madam's courtyard? He felt a little strange in his heart, but he couldn't tell what was wrong. On the other side, in the old madam's courtyard, wait a moment. I'll go in and talk to mother, Zhuechui said to Primordial Chaos and Fengjiu before walking in. The old man casually sat down by the stone table in the courtyard, while Fengjiu stood and quietly observed the layout of the courtyard. After about the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Zhuechui walked out from inside. "Young Master Feng, come in. My mother wants to see you." He looked at Fengjiu and said. Seeing this, Fengjiu walked in while Hunyuan and Zhua Junyue remained outside. After they went in, the old man took a sip of wine and looked at Zhua Junyue beside him. You didn't tell your father that the girl is a girl? Zhou Junue paused for a moment and said, I only said that he's my grandfather's disciple. Chapter 2109. How long would this girl have to wait before she was willing to teach him? Fengjiu, who had followed Zhou Chuwei inside, saw that it was a small hall with simple decorations. Other than a Buddha statue, there was nothing else. In the inner hall, an old madam sat quietly on her knees in front of the Buddha statue. She was twirling the prayer beads in her hand. Her lips moved slightly, but no sound could be heard. Mother, she's here, Zhou Chuwei said as he looked at his mother in front of the Buddha statue. The old madam stopped twirling the prayer beads and stood up. Zhou Chuwei helped her to a chair at the side before she looked at the newcomer. A pair of aged eyes landed on Fengjiu as she quietly sized her up. She looked at the woman dressed as a man and asked, Miss, are you Chu Baishan's successor? Zhou Chuwei was slightly taken aback when he heard this. He looked at Fengjiu. Fengjiu smiled and looked at the old madam. He stepped forward and bowed. Fengjiu greets mistress. My master is indeed Chu Batian. The old madam laughed. I didn't expect him to have a successor. I didn't expect him to still remember that he has descendants. Haha, the three of them chatted in the room. Outside the room, the old man looked at Zhou Junue, who was sitting upright. He was curious about the situation inside, and kept looking inside. He looked at the expressionless Zhou Junue and asked, Aren't you curious about what they're talking about? Aren't you going in to take a look? Grandmother and father are inside. There's nothing for me to do, Zhou Junue said. Hee kid, let me talk to you about something serious. The old man narrowed his eyes and chuckled. He wanted to talk to Zhou Junue about something serious, but when he saw Zhou Junue's expression and laughter, it was difficult to connect him to something serious. When he saw Zhou Junue looking at him without saying anything, the old man coughed lightly and said, It's like this. I think this Fengjiu is quite capable. Take a look. When we were in the volcano forest, the blood demon actually knew her name as the ghost doctor. You can imagine that she's quite famous. Another thing is that her strength and ability are beyond everyone's expectations, especially her medical skills, which are top-notch. It is extremely beneficial to have a relationship with such a person. Others want to have a relationship with her, but they can't. But you are different. You are the descendants of her master, and she has to call your grandmother master's wife. With this relationship, you have to hug this thigh well, lest you regret it when the time comes. At this point, the old man paused and looked inside. He lowered his voice and said, So, if she says she wants to help you, you don't have to be polite with her. It's such a good resource, it's a waste not to take it. Upon hearing the old man's words, Zhou Junue glanced at him speechlessly without saying a word. Inside the room, the three of them were chatting. The old madam glanced at Fengjiu, her aged voice pausing between each word as she said, All these years, I didn't allow Chu Hui to set up his own residence because I felt that I owed the Zhou family. If I hadn't met my later husband and been saved by him, not only me, but even Chu Hui wouldn't have survived. All these years, it was the Zhou family who has always protected us. The Zhou family has done us a favor, so even if Chu Hui isn't recognized by the Zhou family elders, I still won't allow him to abandon the Zhou family. Chapter 2110. Fengjiu looked deeply at her and nodded. I understand. However, if you need my help in the future, you can find me at the Heavenly Pill Dispensary in 100 River City. She paused and continued, Mistress, you must have some old ailments. I will stay in the manor for a few days and help you nurse your body back to health. Today's short interaction made her realize that she was a righteous and affectionate person. Since she was her master's wife, even if she later remarried to old Master Zhua, she was still worthy of her respect. Using silver needles was not a big deal. Hearing this, the old madam was startled and then nodded. Then I'll have to trouble you. She then said to Zhou Chuwei, Take good care of Miss Feng. Yes, mother. Zhou Chuwei bowed and left with Fengjiu. Seeing them come out, Hun Yuan and Zhuo Junyue stood up and walked over. Hun Yuan looked at them and asked, "Finished chatting?" "Yes." Feng Jiu nodded and said to Zhuo Junyue, "I will stay here for a while. Sorry for disturbing you." Zhuo Junyue did not say much and only said, "As long as you don't mind, you can stay for as long as you want. Let's go. We will return to the West Manor first." Zhuo Chui said and was about to walk out with them when he saw a figure walk in. He stopped when he saw who it was. Big Brother. The person who came was the head of the Zhuo family. He came alone with his hands behind his back. When he saw the people in the courtyard, he first greeted Chu Zhuohui before looking at Hun Yuanzi with a smile. "Immortal monarch, how have you been?" "Second uncle." Zhuo Junyue bowed and called out. Seeing him nod and smile, Zhuo Junyue stood quietly. "Second brother, are you here to see mother?" Zhuo Chui asked with a relaxed expression. "Yes and no." He smiled and said, "I heard from the gatekeeper that Jun Yu is back, and so is the immortal monarch. I also heard that all of you came to mother's place, so I wanted to come and take a look. I've already asked the kitchen to prepare. It's rare that everyone is here, so all of you can come to the East Mansion for a meal tonight." Hearing this, the old man stroked his beard and nodded with a smile. "That's fine too. This old man has never refused anything that comes his way. But let me say this first. You can have nothing else, but this wine must be prepared." "Haha, of course, immortal monarch can rest assured." He smiled and looked at his brother, who didn't respond, and asked, "Big brother, do you want to come over for dinner tonight? Let's call all three of them. It's just a family gathering to have a good chat." Seeing this, Zhuo Chui said, "All right. Then I'll go back and tell your sister-in-law that we'll come over in the evening." "All right, I'll go see mother and tell her that she hasn't come out for a long time. Since the immortal monarch is here today, I'll ask her and father to come out together. Then we'll go back first." Zhuo Chui said and then left with Hun Yuan and the others. Seeing them leave, the head of the Zhuo family walked inside to see his mother first. Chapter 21:11. Zhuo Chui nodded. "Yes, second brother is very good to our family and takes good care of us." "Yes. It's just that the elders of the Zhuo family don't approve of you. Zhuo Zhenglin is quite considerate and capable. Otherwise, your Zhuo family wouldn't be so prosperous." The old man opened the gourd and took a sip of wine. He glanced at Zhuo Chui. "Aren't we going to visit Brother Junyue? This is an opportunity in front of us. If we miss it, we might not have such a good opportunity next time." Zhuo Chui glanced at Feng Jiu and said to his eldest son, "Bring Sir Immortal and Miss Feng over. I'll go talk to your mother about something." "Okay." Zhuo Junyue nodded and glanced at Hun Yuanzi and Feng Jiu, indicating for them to follow him. "This blockhead," the old man muttered and shook his head. He followed him to another small courtyard. When they arrived at another courtyard, before they even got close, they could already hear voices coming from inside. "Second brother, mother said that big brother is back and that unruly old grandpa is here too. However, they went to the East Mansion to visit grandmother. Mother told us to go over later. She asked the kitchen to prepare some food. She said that we should have a good meal together as a family." The speaker was a young girl in an orange dress. She looked pretty and was about 15 or 16 years old. She was half squatting beside a wheelchair and looking at her second brother. The man in the wheelchair was in his early 20s. He was dressed in a sky-blue robe and had a gentle smile on his handsome face. He held a book in his hand and was currently listening to the young girl's words. As if he had sensed someone's arrival, he suddenly turned his head and looked outside the courtyard. "Big brother? Sir Immortal, you're here." His smile deepened when he saw familiar faces. He said to the young girl beside him, "Push me over." "Big brother, grandpa." Zhuo Yuzhen smiled and greeted the two of them happily. She pushed her second brother forward. Zhuo Junyue's expression softened when he saw his sister-in-law. He looked at the two of them and said, "I've been home for a while. I just came back from visiting my grandmother." As he spoke, he took out something from his space and handed it to the two of them. "This is a gift for you." "Thank you, big brother." The two of them spoke in unison. Zhuoyuzhen first opened the Qianquan bag handed over by her big brother. She took out a lot of beautiful and fun things from it, including 2 or 3 defensive magical weapons. Zhuo Junyang took out some magical treasures, as well as some books on cultivation and medicine. Delighted, he said, "Big brother, I really like these gifts." Yes, I like it too." Zhuoyuzhen also smiled happily. "It's good that you like her," he said and introduced her to his sister-in-law. "This is Fengjiu." The two of them looked at the silent young man in green and secretly sized him up before greeting, "Young Master Feng." Fengjiu nodded and stepped forward. He said to the man, "Give me your hand." Hearing this, Zhuo Junyang was slightly surprised. He looked at the young man in front of him. At this moment, his elder brother said, "Her medical skills are very good. Let her take a look at you." Chapter 21:12. He lowered his gaze to hide the strange look in his eyes. Because he was unable to move his legs, he also liked to study medicine. The young man in front of him looked even younger than him, but when he checked his pulse, he could feel that there was something unusual about him. He could only feel that as the youth's slender and fair fingers touched his pulse, a wave of spiritual energy flowed through his veins and throughout his body. However, that wave of spiritual energy was retracted in an instant. "I have to take a look at your legs." She looked at the man in the wheelchair and said. Zhuo Junyang couldn't help but be taken aback. He instinctively looked at his elder brother. When he saw his elder brother nod, he put away the book and Qianquan bag in his other hand. Then, he bent down and rolled up his pants to his knees. Fengjiu squatted in front of him and was surprised to see that his legs had not shrunk. They were just pale as if there was no blood in them. She reached out and felt that the veins in his legs were almost non-existent. "How is it? Can it be treated?" The old man could not help but ask. "It can be treated, but it's a little troublesome." As she spoke, she stood up and looked at Zhuo Junyue. "Although the veins in your brother's legs are not broken, it's almost as if they were broken. It's an extremely rare case of tendinitis. For those who suffer from this condition, the veins in their entire body are almost non-existent. It's the first time I've seen partial tendinitis like this. However, compared to the whole body, your luck can be considered good." Zhuo Junyang was stunned. He did not know how to react. It was the first time in so many years that someone said that he was lucky. It sounded quite refreshing. Moreover, could his legs be treated? To be honest, perhaps it was because he had seen too many doctors and had been disappointed time and time again. At this moment, these hopeful words no longer stirred up any hope in his ears. Suddenly, he heard his elder brother's determined voice. He could not help but look up. "If she says it can be treated, it can definitely be treated." Zhuo Junyue looked at his younger brother and said again, "Her medical skills are very good." Zhuo Junyang was slightly taken aback. When he heard these words, he could not help but turn his gaze towards the youth in green. He saw that the youth in green was looking at his elder brother with his eyebrows slightly raised. His expression was one of surprise, as if he had not expected his elder brother to say such a thing. "Well, that's right. Since she said she can cure it, then she can definitely cure it. I don't know about other old men, but since she dares to say this, then she must have a way." Hun Yuanzi stroked his beard and glanced at Fengjiu. "What do you mean by trouble? Do you lack medicine?" Seeing that both of them were so sure of her medical skills, Fengjiu couldn't help but smile and look at the old man. "Yes, to treat his leg, there are a few medicines that are more important and more difficult to find." "What medicine? I'll go look for him," Zhuo Junyue said. Fengjiu glanced at him and slowly said, 500-year-old 9-section sky lantern grass, thousand leaves scale flower, and blood deer tendon. Zhuo Junue frowned when he heard that he had never heard of it before. He secretly noted it down. I'll look for it. Chapter 21:13. That's right. That's why I said it's hard to find the medicine. Fengjiu smiled and looked at Zhuo Junue. Are you sure you can find it? Zhuo Junue met her smiling eyes and said in a low voice, even if I can't find it, I still have to find it. I won't let go of even the slightest chance. As long as his brother could stand again, he would try anything. Zhuo Juanyang's heart warmed at his brother's words. He looked at his taciturn brother and smiled gently. Big brother, it's all right. I'm used to it. Don't worry, I'll find all the medicine you need. He reached out and patted his brother's shoulder. Don't worry. Zhuo Juanyang did not say anything else and only smiled. He knew that since his brother had said so, he would definitely do it. However, could he really stand again? His gaze fell on his legs. He had read so many medical books, but he still did not know what was wrong with his legs. However, this young man named Fengjiu only took a glance and checked his pulse to know his symptoms. To be honest, he was quite surprised. Could it be that this young man's medical skills were really that good? Seeing this, Zhuo Yuzhen said happily, That's great. Second brother's legs can be treated. Father and mother will be very happy to hear this news. As she spoke, she looked at everyone and said, Big brother, second brother, grandfather, big brother Feng, let's go to the front. It should be time to eat. Come, come, come. Let's eat. The old man nodded and turned to pull Fengjiu outside. He said to the three people behind him, The three of you, quickly follow us. Seeing the two of them leave the small courtyard, Zhuo Juanyang asked, Big brother, is this young Master Feng's medical skills really that good? Where is he from? Where did you meet him? Seeing that the two of them had left, Zhuo Juanyue said to his sister-in-law, She's our biological grandfather's disciple. We met her some time ago, but we only found out that her master is our biological grandfather recently. Looking at his sister-in-law's stunned face, he slowly said, Previously, after coming back to see father and mother, she went to grandmother's place. However, only a few of us know about this matter. Second uncle didn't reveal it. Now, I'm telling you because I want to tell you that she is indeed a capable person. Don't treat her like an ordinary person. He paused and looked at his brother. Since she said your legs can be treated, they can be treated. Her medical skills are very good. I believe her. The two of them were stunned for a while before they recovered. Actually, they knew a little about their family's relationship with the East. However, their father and mother didn't tell them before, their parents and they had not told them much. They only vaguely they had known. But they had never asked them. Now their big brother to tell them. So she was their biological grandfather's disciple. No wonder. A truly capable doctor would rarely come to their doorstep like this. Thinking about it, it must be because their biological grandmother was his master. That's why he came to treat him. Thinking of this, he felt relieved. It was fine as long as he knew that person's background. Chapter 21:14. It's a long story. I'll tell you about it when I have time. Let's go. Don't let father and mother wait for too long. Zhuo Juanyue said as he pushed the wheelchair outside. Zhuo Yuzhen didn't say anything else. Zhuo Juanyang changed the topic and asked about his big brother's encounter this time. In the front yard of the West residence, there was a round table with 8 delicious dishes on it. There were also 2 jugs of fine wine. The atmosphere was relaxed and cheerful. Miss Feng, since you're here, just treat this place as your own home. Take whatever you want to eat. Don't stand on ceremony with us. Zhuo Chui smiled as he poured wine for her and Han Yuanzi. When Zhuo Juanyang and Zhuo Yuzhen heard their father call the green-robed youth Miss, they were momentarily stunned. Zhuo Juanyang shifted his gaze to the green-robed youth sitting next to Han Yuanzi. No matter how he looked at him, that person was still a young man. But why, big brother Feng, you're a girl. Then wouldn't I have to call you big sister Feng? Zhuoyuzhen was even more direct. After hearing her father's words, she directly asked Fengjiu. Yes, I'm a girl. I'm wearing men's clothes to make it easier for me to move around. Fengjiu took a sip of wine and smiled at her. I really couldn't tell, Zhuoyuzhen said in surprise. Ahem. Hearing this, Fengjiu coughed lightly, not knowing how to respond. Was she too much like a man? Alright. In any case, it wasn't the first time someone had mistaken her for someone else. Hee, she doesn't have any feminine charm. That's why your brother and I didn't know she was a girl when we first met her. The old man smiled as he glanced at Fengjiu and picked up a piece of meat to eat. Father Zhuo and Mother Zhuo looked at each other and smiled, urging them to eat more. Although there were only 8 dishes, each dish was quite large. In the end, everyone was full, but there were still a few dishes left. I've already asked someone to prepare the guest rooms. Don't worry and just stay here. Our west residence is usually quieter and no one will disturb us. Mother Zhuo smiled as she called over a servant girl and asked her to bring them to the guest rooms to rest. The journey back from the past few days was tiring. Now that they were full, they naturally wanted to lie down and rest. Thus, they followed the servant girl to the guest rooms and prepared to take an afternoon nap. They'll go to the east residence in the evening. After arriving at the client's room, the old man fell asleep immediately. Fengjiu asked someone to prepare hot water for her to take a bath before she went to bed to rest. She hadn't slept on the bed for a long time. Now that she relaxed, she fell asleep in no time. The 2 guests were going to take an afternoon nap. Zhuoyuzhen and his family went to the hall and dismissed the servants. They didn't know what they were talking about. In the evening, when the east residence sent someone to invite them, they asked Zhuoyuzhen to wake Hunyuanzi and Fengjiu up. The old man remembered that there was a banquet in the east residence and woke up when Zhuoyuzhen knocked on the door. He tidied up and left. As for Fengjiu, when Zhuoyuzhen knocked on the door, only a sleepy voice came from inside. Chapter 21:15. Zhuoyuzhen continued to knock on the door when he heard that. Open the door. When Fengjiu heard the knocking on the door, she felt like she had just woken up. She wanted to sleep, but the knocking on the door kept her awake. In the end, she lifted the blanket and walked out of the room. She opened the door and glared at the person who was knocking on the door. Didn't I tell you? I don't have to go. Your second uncle invited an old man. It'll take me a lot of effort to explain to him. Besides, I'm not hungry yet. You guys can go. Don't worry about me. I still want to go out after I wake up. After saying that, she scratched her head and closed the door. She walked back into the room and lay down on the bed to continue sleeping. When the old man in the courtyard heard that, he stroked his beard and said, "It's fine if she doesn't want to go. Your second uncle didn't say anything about letting her go anyway. Let's go." He called out to Zhuoyuzhen and walked out leisurely. Zhuoyuzhen paused for a moment. "Then I'll get someone to prepare some food for you." After saying that, he turned and left. Fengjiu did not have enough sleep. She fell asleep again after a while. When she woke up, it was because she was hungry. After tidying herself up, she walked out of the room and saw that the sky was already dark. The lights in the residence were already lit. Seeing that the night was not bad, she wanted to go out for a walk. However, when she walked out of the courtyard, she remembered that Zhuoyuzhen had asked someone to prepare dinner for her. Forget it. She'd better go out for a walk and see if there was anything to eat. When she thought of that, an expectant smile appeared on her face. She walked briskly out of the residence. In the east residence, the old mistress did not see Fengjiu at the banquet. She asked, "Why didn't Fengjiu come with you?" "Her? Don't worry about her. She was still sleeping when we came out. Junue already told the kitchen to prepare dinner for her. It's fine," the old man said with a smile. He took a sip of the wine and said to the Zhuo family head, "This wine is indeed mellow. It must have been hidden for many years, right? The head of the Zhou family was surprised that his mother would ask about the azure-robed youth beside Master Hunyuan. Just as he was wondering what was strange about the azure-robed youth, he heard Master Hunyuan's words and couldn't help but smile. It is quite old. If a mortal monarch likes it, I'll give you 2 jars later. Ha ha ha, then this old man won't be polite. He laughed loudly, extremely happy. On the other side, Fengjiu wandered around after leaving the manor. She liked to eat the local delicacies, especially the small things from the street stalls. After walking around, she came to a small stall and sat down, eating a snack that even she couldn't name. Have you heard? Recently, many of the black market's branches have been destroyed. Many industries have suffered heavy losses. The black market has been closed recently. I wonder if the problem has been solved? Fengjiu, who was sitting in a corner eating, raised her eyebrows slightly when she heard this. She looked back and saw 2 or 3 cultivators eating at another table while chatting. The black market has been destroyed? Why haven't I heard about it? The people who were chatting heard the azure-robed youth's question. They sized him up and laughed. So what if you've heard? The people who dared to attack the black market must have a powerful background. Let me tell you, I also heard that the owner of the black market was seriously injured. His condition is very bad. Chapter 21:16. Look at what you're saying. If this wasn't the case, how could I say that? I heard that the injury was very serious. Think about it. If the owner of the black market wasn't in a good condition, how could the black market's power be suppressed so badly? That's right. The black market's power here is not to be underestimated. I didn't expect that the trouble this time would be so troublesome. In my opinion, if the owner of the black market can't get through this crisis, the black market will be destroyed along with him. Hearing this, Fengjiu thought for a moment and asked, Then, have you heard of any power that made a move against the black market? Here, which power is strong enough to compete with the black market? From what I know, the owner of the black market's power is unfathomable. How could he be injured so easily? Could it be that there's some inside story? We don't know about that. The news hasn't spread, so we can't know even if we want to. In my opinion, even the people of the black market don't know what's going on. I think only the core members know the whole story. However, to be able to become a core member of the black market, he must be someone with some ability. Small people like us don't have the right to meet such a person. The man smiled and took a sip of wine. He looked at Fengjiu and said, Little brother, why are you so concerned about the black market? Could it be that you're from the black market? As he spoke, he looked at Fengjiu from head to toe. Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled and said, With my power, how could I be from the black market? I'm just curious. Also, as you said, the black market has a certain degree of stability here. I'm just surprised that it was destroyed. Hearing this, the men laughed and chatted with Fengjiu. After a while, Fengjiu left first. She didn't go back to the Zhou family. Instead, she walked around the city and walked into a shop that sold medicine. Young master, what do you need? The medicine boy came up and asked. Fengjiu looked at the medicine shop and asked, Where's your shopkeeper? The shopkeeper is inside. Young master, is there something you need? The medicine boy looked at the cyan-robed young master in surprise. Well, tell him to come out, she said as she walked around, looking at the medicine in the medicine shop. Seeing this, the medicine boy walked inside. When he came to the inner room, he said to the shopkeeper who was sorting the medicine, Shopkeeper, there's a young master in green outside. He said he's looking for you. When the shopkeeper heard this, he said, I understand. You can go out first. I'll come out after I'm done here. The shopkeeper sorted the herbs in front of him and tidied them up before walking out. When he came outside, he saw the young man in green looking around the store. He didn't know what he was looking for, but when he saw the young man's face, the shopkeeper was a little puzzled. He didn't know this person, Could it be that he was not looking for him, but for the medicine? Thinking of this, he took a step forward and asked with a smile, "Young master, do you need any medicine?" Fengjiu looked back at the shopkeeper and asked, "Are you the shopkeeper here?" "Yes, I am the shopkeeper here. Is there anything I can help you with?" he asked with a smile. Seeing this, Fengjiu turned her hand and a token appeared in her palm. The shopkeeper looked at him with a smile. Suddenly, he saw a command medallion in the young man's hand. When he saw the command medallion clearly, he was shocked. His eyes widened in disbelief. Let's find a place to talk." Chapter 21:17. This lowly one did not know that Master was coming and did not welcome you. "Please forgive me, forgive me." The shopkeeper hurriedly bowed after entering the room. His expression was agitated and his eyes shone with excitement. It was their master, the ghost Dr. Fengjiu. He never thought that he, the shopkeeper of this small medicine shop, would have the opportunity to meet their master. It was simply too inconceivable. "Rise." Fengjiu kept the token and casually sat down in the room. "I'm here to ask you to send a message to the Heavenly Pill Building. Bring me a brush and ink." Yes, the shopkeeper hurriedly replied. After bringing the brush and ink, he respectfully stood to the side, secretly sizing up his master from time to time. He knew that his master was in the 100 River City's Heavenly Pill House, but he didn't expect that his master would go out and come here. He had only heard of this master but had never seen him before. He was curious, excited, and even more so, respectful. This was the first time he had seen his master at such a close distance. One could imagine how excited he was. Fengjiu finished writing the message and sealed it with a watermark before handing it to him. "Send it out as soon as possible. I'll come back in 2 days. Yes, he replied. Seeing that his master was about to leave, he asked, "Does master have a place to stay here? This lowly one has a courtyard behind here for master to rest." "There's no need." She waved her hand and stopped in her tracks. She turned back to look at him. "I'll be staying in the Zhuo family for a while. If there's anything urgent, you can go to the Zhuo family's west residence to find Zhuo Junyue. Yes, this lowly one will remember," he respectfully replied as he sent her out. After seeing his master leave, the shopkeeper hurriedly sent someone to deliver the letter to the Heavenly Pill Building in 100 River City. There was also a black market in the city, but Fengjiu did not go there. Now that she was staying in 100 River City, the people in the black market would definitely know. If the owner of the black market was in a serious condition, he would probably send the letter to the Heavenly Pill Building. As for the Zhuo family, her mistress had to be nursed back to health, and Zhuo Junyang's legs had to be treated as well. She would probably have to stay here for a period of time. Furthermore, she was indebted to the owner of the black market. If something really happened, she would have to make a trip back. Because she had heard the news about the black market, she did not have the mood to shop anymore. She walked one round before returning to the Zhuo residence. The moment she entered, she was welcomed by the old man. "Where did you go? I thought you had snuck away." Hun Yuan let out a sigh of relief upon seeing her return. "I just went out for a walk." "What's wrong? What's the matter?" Fengjiu said and sat down in the courtyard. "When do you plan to teach the old man Taiji fist?" He sat down and asked. Fengjiu glanced at him and said nothing. Seeing this, the old man glared at him. "You're not trying to go back on your word, are you? You can't go back on your words. Otherwise. What else?" She raised her eyebrows and asked. "Otherwise, this old man will continue to pester you and follow you closely." Fengjiu rolled her eyes and said, "Wait until I'm in a good mood." She got up and walked into the room. She said to Hun Yuan, who was about to follow her, "I'm going to rest. Don't follow me." The old man choked and glared at her. "Didn't you say you were going to help Junyu's grandmother recuperate? Are you going to eat, drink, and sleep all day?" Isn't this a pure waste of time? Chapter 21:18. Seeing this, the old man was very bored and could only turn around and return to his room. However, in the middle of the night, Fengjiu quietly went out and went to the old madam's courtyard in the east courtyard. This was what she had told her during the day. At night, she would come to treat her body. She only needed to use needles for 3 days and take medicine for a few days, and her body's illness would be cured. When Fengjiu left the room, the old man knew. When he came out and saw that she was going to the east courtyard, he muttered and went back to sleep. The old madam left only one confidant to keep watch at the east courtyard. When she entered the courtyard, the confidant by the old madam's side retreated and stood guard outside the courtyard. When she entered the room, she saw that she was sitting on the bed with her eyes closed and a blanket covering her body. She called out, "Mistress, are you still awake?" She thought that she would sleep for a while before waking up, but from the looks of it, she had been waiting here the whole time. "I couldn't sleep, so I waited here for you," the old madam said and gestured for her to sit down. She asked, "Did you have dinner tonight?" Fengjiu smiled. "Yes, I went out for a walk and ate outside." Hearing this, the old madam nodded. "You are his disciple, but you are neglected like this. I should have invited you to dinner tonight." "I'm fine." She was not someone who cared about these things. "Can Juanyang's leg really be cured?" the old madam asked, her gaze landing on Fengjiu. "It can be cured, but I can't cure it because I haven't found all the medicine. It will probably take some time," Fengjiu said as she took out the silver needles. "His leg hasn't moved for a long time. Even if it recovers, he will need to practice before he can walk again. I'm afraid he won't be able to walk in a short period of time." Hearing this, the old madam nodded and asked, "He doesn't know any medical skills. He didn't teach you medical skills, did he?" "No." Fengjiu raised his head and looked at her with a smile in his eyes. "Actually, Master didn't teach me anything because he only left behind a strand of primordial spirit, so he couldn't teach me anything. However, he helped me open up the meridians in my body and gave me the Qinfeng sword. He also left me many secret manuals." All these years, other than the skills she had learned in her previous life, she had learned everything by herself from secret manuals. Hearing this, the old madam was slightly startled. Although she had already vaguely guessed it, after all, she had said today that it was only a strand of Chu Baishan's primordial spirit that had been left behind. Naturally, it was impossible for him to teach her anything. However, just because he called her master, she was willing to help them like this. Today, there was a hidden meaning in her words. If the eldest son's family wanted to leave the Zhou family and establish their own residence, she could help. However, she had still rejected this possibility. Speaking of which, she was being selfish. "You can call me old madam from now on. You don't have to call me mistress anymore," she said. Fengjiu was slightly surprised. He looked at her. "Why? Now that I'm the mother of the Zhou family's head, wouldn't it be a mess if you call me mistress?" She smiled and said, "Just call me old madam." Hearing this, Fengjiu nodded. "All right, then I'll help you with the acupuncture." She replied and leaned against the soft couch quietly, allowing him to help her with the acupuncture. Seeing Fengjiu, who was dressed like a young man in green, earnestly inserting the needles, she couldn't help but feel a little absent-minded, her thoughts drifting away. Chapter 21:19. The old madam was lost in her memories and gradually fell asleep because of the acupuncture. When she opened her eyes again, Fengjiu had already put away the silver needles. "Are you done?" she asked, her old voice slightly hoarse. Fengjiu poured a cup of water. "Drink some water. Your throat will feel better." As she spoke, she handed the cup of water to the old madam. "Today's treatment is done. You just have to do it again tomorrow and the day after. I'll make some medicine for you to take. After a while, all the old illnesses in your body will disappear." Hearing this, the old madam nodded. Thank you. This is what I should do. She smiled and stood up. Other than this, I don't know what else I can do for you. You don't owe us anything. You've done enough for us. She patted her hand and said, It's getting late. You should go back and rest. All right, then I'll go back first, Fengjiu said, then turned and left. Her figure flashed and quietly disappeared into the night. Mistress. The middle-aged woman outside came in and saw her mistress sitting on the soft bed. Seeing that she was awake, she asked, Mistress, do you want to rest? I can't sleep. Chat with me. She waved her hand and gestured for her to sit down and chat. Yes. The middle-aged woman walked forward and sat down. That night, the lights in the small courtyard were lit all the way until dawn. Early the next morning, Zhuo Junyue went out. He first went to the city's auctions to find out if the 3 spiritual medicines that Fengjiu mentioned were available. He then went to the century-old medicinal shops in the city to ask around. He only returned after noon. Fengjiu slept until noon. When she walked out of the room, she saw the old man pacing around the courtyard with a troubled look. It was rare to see the old man like this, so she asked, What's wrong? What are you doing so early in the morning? The old man glanced at her and said, What early in the morning? It's already afternoon. Only you can sleep until now. She raised her eyebrows and looked at him, who looked like he wanted to say something. She smiled and said, Do you have something to say? Why didn't he say anything? She's so bashful that I feel uncomfortable just looking at her. As she spoke, she came to the courtyard and stretched. It was rare that the old man didn't glare at her this time. Instead, he glanced at her from time to time. After hesitating for a long time, he said, This old man just received the news. There's something I have to deal with. Upon hearing this, Fengjiu was slightly startled. That's it? Then you should go. What's there to be troubled about? Wasn't the old man afraid that you would sneak away if he left? Who knows if the Heavenly Pill Building will be able to find you next time? He couldn't help but mutter as he stared at her worriedly. Fengjiu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. That's my business. Haven't you heard that a monk can run away, but the temple can't? What was there to worry about? If you can't find me here, then go to the 100 River City's Heavenly Dan building. Besides, there's no need for me to avoid you, right? So, you won't go missing with the old man. When the old man heard this, his eyes lit up. Then when this old man is done, I'll go to 100 River City to look for you. You'll find time to teach me Taiji Fist? Chapter 21:20. Hearing this, her eyes flashed and she stared at Hunyuan for a while. Then, her lips curled into a strange smile. Your position in the Nebula Immortal sect is really not low? Of course. He puffed out his chest and raised his chin. Stroking his goatee, he said proudly, It's not just the Star Cloud Immortal Pill sect. Even the other 4 sects know of this old man. What's your current cultivation level? Peak Immortal Supremacy? She asked. Although Fengjiu did not say anything, the old man stared at her. Are you looking down on this old man's cultivation level? Let me tell you, Peak Immortal Supremacy is not a level that anyone can reach. Many old monsters have failed in the Heavenly Lightning refinement when they entered the Immortal Supremacy level. Only a few people in our generation have reached our level. Of course, we don't count those devil cultivators who don't walk the righteous path. Then you must have been stuck at Peak Immortal Supremacy level for a long time, right? You can't advance anymore? Fengjiu stared at him with a smile that was hard to decipher. Seeing that she looked down on him, the old man snorted. Do you think it's that easy to advance from Immortal Supremacy to Immortal Emperor? Do you know that there are very few Immortal Emperors in the upper reaches of the continent? Oh? Very few? In other words, there are some. She nodded thoughtfully. Above Immortal Sage was Immortal Supremacy, and above Immortal Supremacy was Immortal Emperor. Her current cultivation level was at Peak Immortal Sage, and the only immortal supremacy she had met was this old man. As for immortal emperors, she had never seen one before. Of course there are. How can there not be? Not counting the ones in the upper reaches of the continent, there are 4 immortal emperors in this continent. They are. He was about to say it when he saw that she was waiting for him to continue. He laughed. I'm not telling you. After waiting for a long time, he did not continue. In the end, he laughed softly. She could not help but twitch her mouth. Didn't you say that if I wanted to investigate, I wouldn't be able to find out? She looked at him and said, Don't you have something to do? Why aren't you going? How about this? When this old man sees you again, this old man will tell you. I'll be leaving first. You can go back and tell that blockhead June you. When the time comes, this old man will directly go to your heavenly pill house to find you. I won't come here. He knew that by the time he was done, she wouldn't be here. See you then. She nodded. Seeing this, the old man felt relieved and left. It seemed that she would not hide from him. After he finished his business, he would go to the 100 River City to see what the heavenly pill building was like. After the old man left, Feng Jiu went outside and found a maidservant waiting outside the courtyard. She asked the maidservant to bring some food over. After a simple meal, she was about to go to Zhuo Juanyang's courtyard when Zhuo Junyue came in. Where is he? Zhuo Junyue came to the courtyard but did not see the old man. He could not help but feel strange. The old man has something to do, so he left first. He asked me to inform you. Feng Jiu said as she walked out. Let's go. To your. Chapter 21-21. That's normal. Feng Jiu did not even look back as she continued to walk forward. She only slowed down her pace and said, Do you think that kind of spiritual medicine is so easy to find? Do you think you can find it in a random medicine shop or an auction? As she spoke, she glanced at Zhuo Junyue, who was walking up to her side. Then what should we do? Without those 3 medicines, Juanyang's legs. He lowered his gaze to hide the worry in his eyes. Although we don't have those 3 medicines now, we can still find them. Before that, I can use silver needles to unblock the veins in his legs. Once we find those 3 medicines, we can use them as medicine. She walked leisurely, 1 step at a time. Zhuo Junyue did not say anything else as he quietly followed beside her. When the 2 of them reached the courtyard, they saw Zhuo Junyang sitting in the courtyard, basking in the sun and reading a book. Feng Jiu noticed that he was holding a medical book and raised her eyebrows. You're interested in medicine? Hearing that, Zhuo Junyang closed the medical book in his hands and looked up at her with a smile. Being ill for a long time makes one a doctor. I want to read more books. Perhaps I can find a cure. You've been cultivating at home all this time. Have you thought about which sect you want to join after your legs are healed? She sat down at the stone table and waved at Zhuo Junyue, indicating for him to roll up Zhuo Juanyang's pants. Zhuo Junyue went forward and crouched beside the wheelchair to help his younger brother roll up his pants, revealing his knees. Because of my legs, I've been sitting in a wheelchair at home and rarely go out. If my legs can really stand up, I don't want to join any sect. I want to go out and gain experience. I want to travel around and see the outside world. A glimmer of anticipation appeared in his eyes as he looked at his older brother and smiled. Big brother, when you go out again, can you bring me along? Zhuo Junyue looked up at him and nodded. Hearing that, Feng Jiu smiled. She narrowed her eyes and said half-jokingly, The outside world is very dangerous. Don't talk about you. From what I know, your big brother has only been hit once, and it was that kind of cough. Zhuo Juanyue's ears reddened. He coughed lightly and interrupted Feng Jiu's words. He turned to look at her and happened to meet her teasing smile. He could not help but feel embarrassed. He looked away and said, Can I start the needle now? Zhuo Junyang couldn't help but feel curious when he saw this. What had happened to his big brother? How could he not let Fengjiu say it? Furthermore, he had such a strange expression on his face. What's the rush? Let's chat for a while, Fengjiu said unhurriedly with a smile on his face. When I passed by West Street yesterday, I smelled the aroma of the 8-treasured duck in that restaurant and suddenly felt like eating it. What should I do? The corners of Zhuo Junyue and Zhuo Juanyang's mouths twitched when they heard that. So she was craving for the 8-treasured duck. I'll go buy it. Zhuo Junyue stood up and walked out. After his brother left, Zhuo Junyang couldn't help but ask with a smile, "What did my big brother get hit by? I think he looks a little uncomfortable." Hee, Fengjiu let out a low chuckle. Her chuckle sounded a little wretched, and coupled with the strange expression on her face, it didn't quite match her image of a handsome young man dressed in green robes. However, in Zhuo Juanyang's eyes, he only felt that her expression was ever-changing, and it was very novel. Chapter 21-22. If they hadn't pointed it out, he wouldn't have been able to tell that the green-clothed youth was a woman. She had the carefree and unrestrained aura of a man. Her entire body exuded an aura of confidence that soared through the skies. He found it unbelievable. How could a woman imitate a man's actions, expressions, and words so well? Fengjiu narrowed her eyes, and her eyes were full of joy. Since he went to buy the 8-treasured duck for me, I'd better not say anything about it. It's better not to say anything. She shook her head and said with a smile. She took out a silver needle and pierced it into his knee without saying a word. The needle didn't hurt, but when the needle was turned, there was a sore and itchy feeling deep in his knee, in his flesh, tendons, and bones. Just as he was thinking about it, he heard her voice. "How do you feel?" Fengjiu looked up at her. "I didn't feel anything when the needle went in, but when it was turned, it was a little sore and itchy," he said honestly, but he felt a little strange. He had tried acupuncture on himself before, but why didn't he feel as sore and itchy as she did? It's good to feel something. As she spoke, she twirled the silver needle in her hand. Then, she pierced the second needle and continued to twirl it. Although it looked like an ordinary acupuncture point, there was a thin strand of spiritual energy in her hand that passed through the silver needle and entered his foot. While he was being treated, Zhuo Junyue went to buy the 8-treasured duck. In the East House, the head of the Zhuo family seemed to have encountered some problems and was gathering the elders in the house to discuss. The West House didn't know what was going on in the East House. The people there didn't say anything, and they didn't ask. "I bought the 8-treasured duck." Zhuo Junyue entered the yard and looked at Fengjiu, who was chatting. At the same time, he handed over an oiled paper bag. It smells so good." Smelling the fragrance, Fengjiu narrowed his eyes and took it. He said to them, "Then I'll go back first." With that, he ignored them and left with the 8-treasured duck. "Big brother, Fengjiu's medical skills are really amazing. This time I believe him." He smiled and looked at his big brother. Zhuo Junyue nodded. "Her medical skills are impressive." He paused for a moment before asking, "Did she perform acupuncture on you? How do you feel?" "Actually, I've used silver needles before, but I didn't feel anything. But just now, when she used the silver needles, my legs felt sore and itchy." He told him about what had happened and asked, "Big brother, why do you think her medical skills are so good? Back then, we went to a lot of people and they all said that my leg was incurable. After so many years, she was the only one who said that it could be cured." Zhuo Junyue revealed a rare smile and said, "She said she's called the ghost doctor. As long as she wants to treat it, there's no illness that she can't cure." While the two brothers were chatting, Fengjiu returned to the small courtyard and entered his room. He took out the spirit wine and ate the 8-treasured duck. In the second half of the night, she went to the old madam's courtyard again. She left after administering the needles, and during the day, she helped Zhuo Junyang with his treatment. Chapter 21-23. Fengjiu looked at her and paused. Old madam, forgive me for asking, but does the Zhuo family's old master treat you well? She had been here for a few days, but she had never seen the old master. Moreover, it seemed that the old master rarely came to her courtyard. Hearing this, the old madam was slightly startled. Then, she smiled and said, "He treats me very well. Otherwise, why would he marry me back then?" Speaking of this, she sighed softly in her heart and said, "Speaking of which, I have let him down. All these years, there has been a knot in my heart that has not been untied. Ever since my 2 sons grew up, I hid in the backyard and rarely showed myself. When he saw me like this, he also came to my place less often. He only came over during the holidays. It has been a long time. Old madam's body has been nursed back to health. Many times, one's mood can also affect one's body. Old madam, why don't you try to open your heart? Instead of always meditating here, why don't you go out more often?" she suggested softly. Knowing her good intentions, the old madam nodded and smiled kindly. "Yes, I will. I've been here for a few days. Old madam's body is fine, but Juanyang's legs lack 3 types of medicine. I may be preparing to leave. I will come back after I find the 3 types of medicine." She spoke slowly and bowed to her. "Old madam, I will go back first." With that, she turned and left. She returned to her room to rest. The next morning, she went out and went to the medicine shop in the city. Because she had been busy concocting pills for the 2 of them, she did not have time to go out. It was a good time to see what kind of news the black market had sent. The shopkeeper of the medicine shop had been waiting for Fengjiu for 2 days. When he saw her arrive, he could not help but welcome her with joy. "Master, you're here. Please come in." He quickly invited her into the inner room. The medicine boy outside was stunned. He did not understand how the cyan-robed young master had become the shopkeeper's master. "Master, the news arrived at noon yesterday. We have been waiting for you," the shopkeeper said and handed the document over. Fengjiu raised his hand to wipe away the watermark on the document before opening it. The more he read, the more solemn his expression became. He did not expect that the black market would encounter such trouble this time. Furthermore, the situation of the master of the black market was not good. There were already people from the black market who went to the Heavenly Dan building to look for her. She put the items away and said to the shopkeeper, "I might leave tomorrow. If there's any news, you don't have to send it to the Zhuo family. Also, send a message back and tell them to buy the 3 spirit herbs." She instructed the shopkeeper to tell him about the 3 spirit herbs before she walked out. She had the teleportation scroll with her, so she could return quickly. Therefore, she planned to leave tomorrow. Today, she would deal with the matters at hand first. As she walked back to the Zhuo residence, she saw that the main gate of the Zhuo residence was surrounded by people. Moreover, the people surrounding the Zhuo residence were very aggressive, as if they did not dare to leave the matter at that. This made her, who was about to go back, stop in her tracks and stand in an inconspicuous corner to watch. She thought to herself, "Who are these people? Why are they crowding around the Zhuo family's doorstep? Zhuo Zhenglin, come out. Let him come out. If you don't come out, don't blame us for being impolite. Don't hide in there in the future and we can't do anything to you. If you don't come out, we will break in." Chapter 21-24. There were quite a number of people crowding around and the noise was loud and noisy. Everyone was shouting one sentence after another and it was as if they were in a wet market. She did not hear what was going on and only saw the 2 groups of people beginning to fight. For a moment, the sound of swords clashing against each other and angry shouts filled the air. She was a little startled at the sight. They really did fight over the slightest disagreement. However, the powers of both sides seemed to be about the same. Furthermore, this was in front of the Zhuo mansion's gates. No matter how she looked at it, that group should be the one at a disadvantage. However, just as she was thinking about this, she suddenly noticed an inconspicuous old man dressed in gray robes among the group. His powers were even higher than the master of the Zhuo family, Zhuo Zhenglin's. Just as she was thinking about this, she saw the two of them begin to fight. Once the two of them began to fight, a powerful spiritual energy flow and coercion surged in the surroundings, causing the people who had been fighting to retreat and stop. When powerful cultivators fought, the other party's powers were enough to intimidate them. How could they possibly have the ability to continue fighting? Furthermore, the leaders of both sides had already begun to fight. Regardless of the outcome, there would be a way to resolve this. After the gray-robed old man had struck out with his palm, he changed his movements and charged forward. The wind from his palm whistled through the air as he struck out. His sharp and cold eyes were as sharp as swords as he stared at Zhuo Zhenglin, and his attacks were merciless. The two of them exchanged a few blows and Zhuo Zhenglin's expression gradually turned serious. The other party's powers were higher than his. If they continued to fight, he was afraid that he would not be a match for him. If he was defeated in front of the Zhuo mansion's gates, the Zhuo family would become the laughingstock of the city. Zhuo Zhenglin secretly gritted his teeth at the thought of this and increased his powers once again, using all of his powers to deal with the old man. With a wave of his hand, a swirling air blade emitted a whistling sound as it shot towards the old man. Heh! The old man laughed icily and easily dispelled Zhuo Zhenglin's attack with a wave of his hand. He then waved his hand to attack and closed in on Zhuo Zhenglin step by step. His attacks were filled with murderous intent, as if he wanted to take Zhuo Zhenglin's life on the spot. The murderous aura that was whistling towards him was cold and vicious. Zhuo Zhenglin's heart tightened and he braced himself to deal with it. Feng Jiu, who was watching this scene from the corner of the street, could not help but shake his head. The master of the Zhuo family was obviously no match for the old man. At this moment, she saw the gray-robed elder condense a stream of air with a wave of his hand. That stream of air formed a powerful pressure that filled the air between his hands, surging with the movement of his hand. His pair of sinister eyes stared at Zhuo Zhenglin like a venomous snake, and a sinister smile appeared on his face. In the blink of an eye, he attacked with the attack in his hand, attacking Zhuo Zhenglin at a speed that left no time for anyone to cover their ears. Chapter 21-25. Feng Jiu frowned when she saw this. She was a little far away, so it was impossible for her to save him. However, if he was hit by this attack, he would be seriously injured even if he did not die. If he fell, the Zhuo family would fall into internal strife, and the people outside who were eyeing them covetously would not let them off so easily. However, at this moment, a figure suddenly shot out and instantly pulled Zhuo Yulin away from the danger at the speed of light. At that moment, she thought, could it be the Zhuo family's old master? However, when she took a closer look, she could not help but be astonished. Her eyes widened as she stared at the person who, in her opinion, could not possibly have appeared there to save Zhuo Zhenglin. That person was dressed in plain and unassuming clothes. However, at this moment, his aura had changed slightly as he stood there. She was not the only one who was astonished. Everyone in the Zhuo family's East Mansion stared in astonishment at the person who had suddenly appeared to save Zhuo Zhenglin. At this moment, everyone in the East Mansion was shocked and astonished. How could it be him? How could he? Zhuo Chuwei supported his younger brother, who was staring at him in astonishment. After stabilizing his body, he asked, "Are you all right, big brother? How did you? How could he have saved him in such a situation? Even he could not withstand that attack. How could his unassuming and ordinary brother save him so easily? Could it be that he was even more powerful than he was? Could it be that he had been hiding his true strength all these years?" At this moment, he noticed that there was a stream of air surging around his elder brother's body. This stream of air was emitted from his elder brother's body when he saved him earlier. However, in just an instant, that stream of air quietly dissipated, as if it had never appeared. When he saw this, he was shocked and could only feel that it was unbelievable. In a corner outside, Fengjiu leaned against the wall and watched this scene with interest. Who said that Zhuo Chuwei was ordinary? Who said that he was not outstanding in any way? He reckoned that in the entire Zhuo clan, Zhuo Chuwei was the truly powerful one. He had been able to conceal all of his powers and only reveal his inconspicuous cultivation level. Furthermore, no one in the Zhuo family had noticed him for so many years. This showed just how outstanding his powers were. Furthermore, it was not just his powers that were outstanding. Even his ability to conceal his aura was the best she had ever seen. For someone like him, not only had the Zhuo family failed to discover him for so many years, even Han Yuanzi had failed to see through him. She had been here for several days, but she still couldn't tell that he was a capable person. This kind of person, at that moment, overflowed with a suppressive aura that filled the sky, above everyone else. At that moment, she seemed to see her master's shadow and domineering aura on him. However, from what had happened today, she also knew that his temperament was absolutely outstanding. Furthermore, he did not care about fame or fortune. Otherwise, given his strength and cultivation, he would have been able to dominate a region. However, he had quietly become an ordinary person in the Zhuo family. It was said that a great hermit lived in the city. After such a long time, this was the first time she had seen someone who clearly possessed outstanding strength and the aura of a superior, yet had chosen to live as an ordinary person. Chapter 21-26. At this moment, the elders of the Zhuo family were feeling very conflicted. They never thought that Zhuo Chuwei would have such outstanding power. Even more so, they never thought that with such outstanding power and cultivation, he would hide it all this time and be content to live as an ordinary person in seclusion in a small corner of the West Prefecture. These elders knew that he was not of the Zhuo family's bloodline and had always been on guard against the possibility that the Zhuo family would fall into his hands. However, from the looks of it now, they felt that their actions were laughable and petty. For a person with such shocking power to be willing to live an ordinary life and keep a low profile for so many years, it was clear to see that he did not have such intentions at all. If he had not stepped in to save the master would have been severely injured even if he had managed to escape death from that ferocious attack. "Who are you?" The old man furrowed his brows and stared at him with a serious look on his face. The fact that he had been able to save Zhuo Zhenglin under such circumstances showed that he was no ordinary person. However, even the old master of the Zhuo family could not possibly be a match for him. He could not possibly have saved Zhuo Zhenglin under such circumstances. They were well aware of the Zhuo family's power, but where had this person come from? "Who are you, sir? Why have you brought people to cause trouble for the Zhuo family? You've attacked with a killing blow. What are you trying to do?" A sharp and intimidating light shot out from Zhuo Chuhui's eyes as the aura of a powerful cultivator burst forth from his body. His unyielding attitude did not hide his rising murderous intent at all. Zhuo Zhenglin, who was standing next to him, felt both gratified and complicated at the same time when he saw the intimidating aura from his older brother's body. He was gratified that his older brother had such great power and was gratified that he was so outstanding and powerful. He was also conflicted because his older brother had such great and outstanding power but had kept it hidden for his sake and was willing to live as an ordinary and inconspicuous person. The first master of the West Prefecture. Not only did the people in the West Prefecture not pay any attention to him, even those outside the West Prefecture did not know who he was. If it had not been for the fact that he had almost met with a mishap today, it was likely that his older brother would not have made a move and would not have let them know about his great power. However, he believes that after today, no one in or out of the West Prefecture would ever dare to underestimate him again. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but feel excited. Big brother, they're from our Joie family's archenemy, the Ho family. I found out that they had designs on our Joie family's businesses, so I took drastic measures against them and made them suffer heavy losses. Who would have thought that they would bring people to our doorstep today? The 40-something-year-old head of the Joie family, Joie Zhenglin, was like a child complaining to an adult at this moment. He gave a simple account of the entire situation to his elder brother. His tone was clearly filled with anger, but his eyes were filled with unconcealable excitement and anticipation. He wanted Big Brother to teach them a lesson. This way, not only would he be able to establish his elder brother's authority, the elders of the Joie family would no longer use the fact that his elder brother was not of the Joie family bloodline. When the elders standing behind heard Joie Zhenglin's words, they all looked at him strangely. This was because they had never seen such a childish side to him after being the head of the Joie family for so long. Looking at his expression, wasn't he just like a child complaining to an adult? Chapter 21-27. Hearing this, Zhuo Chuhui's expression sank and his sharp gaze swept towards the gray-robed elder. His deep voice carried a powerful aura as it enveloped the area. How dare you come looking for trouble after scheming against the Zhuo family? Do you think that the Zhuo family is a place where just anyone can trample on? As soon as his dignified voice fell, his figure moved and he immediately launched an attack. As he threw a punch, the powerful air current within his body shot out along with the wind from his palm towards the gray-robed elder. When the gray-robed elder saw Zhuo Chuhui's sudden attack, he instinctively retreated and defended himself. However, as the two exchanged blows, he was unable to dodge in time and was struck in the chest by Zhuo Chuhui's palm. Bang! A heavy palm strike landed. The gray-robed old man let out a muffled groan and spat out a mouthful of blood. He couldn't help but stagger back until he collided with the person behind him. Only then did he stabilize himself and not fall to the ground in a sorry state. He raised his head in shock and saw the person in front of him with a dark expression. His hands were clasped behind his back as he shouted in a deep voice, "Scram! If there's a next time, I won't hold back." The deep and stern cry was filled with dignity as a powerful aura forced the people around him to retreat. None of them dared to step forward. The gray-robed elder clutched his chest and glanced at Zhuo Chuhui in dissatisfaction. He then brushed his sleeves and cried out, "Let's go!" Two of the cultivators supported him and quickly left. Following their departure, the crowd surrounding the Zhuo family also dispersed. Only a few commoners and a few family members were left in the city to watch this scene in astonishment. How could the Zhuo family have such a powerful person? I've never heard of him before. That's right. Who is this person? Why haven't I heard of him before? Didn't the Zhuo family head address him as Big Brother? Have you forgotten that the Zhuo family head has a big brother who lives in the West Mansion? Oh, that's right, that's right. I remember that the Zhuo family head's big brother is called Zhuo Chuhui, right? It's just that it's said that his strength is very ordinary, and there hasn't been anything outstanding about him for so many years. I didn't expect that he's the one who's truly hidden his strength. Fortunately, the eldest brother of the Zhuo family has such strength. Look at how dangerous that scene was. If the head of the Zhuo family was hit, even if he didn't die, he would be seriously injured. The people of the Ho family have their eyes on the Zhuo family and want to swallow them whole. Yes, who would have thought that the first master of the Zhuo family was such a hidden expert? His strength was probably the strongest in the Zhuo family, right? I remember that old Master Zhuo hasn't advanced in many years, and Patriarch Zhuo is at the early immortal sage realm. It seems like Patriarch Zhuo is stronger than them. It's strange that people with such power would live in seclusion in the Zhuo family's west residence as if they were hiding from the world. If it weren't for the scene today, many people would have forgotten that the Joie family had such a person. Everyone in the surroundings was discussing amongst themselves while they dispersed. On the other hand, Joie Chui glanced at Joie Zhenglin at the entrance of the Joie clan's residence and said, "You haven't finished dealing with the matter, so go deal with it. I'll be heading back first." As soon as he finished speaking, he strode into the residence and prepared to return to the west residence. However, after taking a few steps, he was called back. "Big brother, wait a moment." Joie Zhenglin called out to him and strode towards him. "Big brother, let's talk." Chapter 21-28. Chui, thank you for saving the master. The elders expressed their gratitude. He's my younger brother, so saving him is something I ought to do. There's no need to thank me. Joie Chui said, then looked at Joie Zhenglin and said, "You go take care of things first. I'll return to the West Mansion first." With that, he didn't give them a chance to say anything and strode towards the West Mansion. Seeing him leave, Joie Zhenglin and the elders looked at each other, then walked towards the East Mansion. After what had happened today, they really had to discuss it. As the crowd dispersed, Feng Jiu, who had been watching from the corner of the street, smiled and also walked forward. After entering the mansion, he walked towards the West Mansion. In the blink of an eye, the news that Joie Chui had saved the master and defeated the Ho family's ancestor quickly spread throughout the mansion. Even the old master had heard the news. After hearing this, everyone in the Joie mansion was shocked and felt that it was unbelievable. After all, the West Mansion had always lived in seclusion, and the first master of the West Mansion had been extremely ordinary for so many years. How could he suddenly be described as a powerful cultivator? And even saved the master? They really didn't dare to believe it. However, because everyone had seen it with their own eyes, even if they didn't dare to believe it, no one questioned it. After discussing the matter, they ordered people to pay more attention to the various properties, and ordered people to secretly monitor the movements of the Ho family. After discussing the matter, the clan elders looked at the patriarch on the main seat and said, "Patriarch, how do you think we should deal with the West Prefecture?" "What do you mean, deal with it?" The master looked at them and asked, "Deal with what?" "No, what we mean is, can the first master of the West Mansion be invited to discuss it with us? He has the strength, if he can be used by the Joie family." Before he could finish, he was interrupted. "He's my older brother." Joie Zhenglin frowned at the elder who had spoken and said, "What do you mean by if he can be used by the Joie family? Just because he's powerful, does he have to contribute to the Joie family?" At this point, Joie Zhenglin snorted coldly, "Don't forget how the elders have prevented me from entrusting my older brother with important tasks all these years. Back then, I didn't allow him to get involved in anything. Don't tell me that just because he saved my life today, he has to work for the Joie clan? That's not what we meant." The crowd sighed inwardly. Joie Zhenglin stood up and looked at the crowd. He didn't interfere with the Joie family's matters back then, and he won't interfere today either. However, just because he doesn't interfere doesn't mean that he will stand by and do nothing when the Joie family is in trouble. Just like what happened today, if I or the Joie family were in danger, he would definitely help. Needless to say, I believe that he would do so. He looked at the crowd and said, "I only hope that after today's incident, the elders will no longer treat him as an outsider." Everyone was speechless for a long time. After a long while, they said, "We understand. I'm going to my mother's place. Everyone, please go back first." As he spoke, he walked out. Seeing the patriarch leave, everyone looked at each other and left one after another in the old madam's courtyard. She was currently sitting on a soft couch, listening to the middle-aged woman beside her talk about what had happened in the manor today. Chapter 21-29. The middle-aged woman paused and glanced at her mistress before continuing, "That's why everyone in the residence is talking about this. However, I heard that first master returned to the west mansion and didn't come to the east mansion. The old madam's eyes flickered and she sighed softly. So he has that kind of power. He even hid it from me, his mother. I've let him down. I know that it was selfish of me to let him stay in the Joie family, especially when he has such power and cultivation. First master is filial. He listens to everything Madame says. Big brother also followed Madame's instructions and stayed in the Joie family to look after them. The middle-aged woman smiled and said, although the first master has been hiding his strength for so many years, today, the second master and the Joie family were both in danger, and it was he who resolved it. The first master still has the Joie family and the second master in his heart. Mother! A voice called out. The middle-aged woman stepped aside, and the old madam looked at the newcomer. You're here, the old madam said and gestured for him to sit. Mother, I'm here to talk to you about something. Zhuo Zhenglin looked at her and said, what is it? Tell me. I'm sure you already know about Big Brother's matter. Yes. The old madam replied and gestured for him to continue. Actually, I came here today to tell you that I want Big Brother to set up his own residence outside. As soon as he said this, his mother sat up with a dark expression. What did you say? The old madam asked in a low voice. Seeing this, he braced himself and said, Mother, you know Big Brother's power. With his power, I think it's too much for him to stay in the small West Mansion. His children are all grown up. After what happened today, I want to discuss this with Big Brother and let him set up his own residence outside. No. She refused without thinking. Her tone was firm, as if there was no room for discussion. Mother, I know what you're thinking, but that's not fair to Big Brother. He has such outstanding and powerful power. You can't break his wings and stop him from flying. You can't imprison him in the small West Mansion. Hearing this, the old madam's expression changed slightly. Your eldest brother won't agree either. Yes, Big Brother won't agree because he listens to you. If you don't agree, he won't agree. That's why I came to find you, Mother. He looked at her and said, How has Big Brother lived in the Joie family for the past few decades? Mother, you should know that I didn't mention it before because I was worried that Big Brother's strength wasn't outstanding. If he went out to establish his own mansion, he would encounter a lot of trouble. But now Big Brother clearly has the strength. Mother, why don't you agree? The old madam didn't say anything. She just closed her eyes in silence. Mother, Zhuo Zhenglin called out. You should go back. Old madam said slowly. Mother, think about what I've just said. I will discuss this matter with my father, he said before turning to leave. On the other side, in the West residence, because there were fewer servants in the West Mansion, there was usually less gossip, so no one in the West Mansion knew about the East Mansion. Compared to the bustling East Mansion, the West Mansion was still the same as before, quiet and elegant. Chapter 2130. In the evening, Zhuo Junyue walked into Fengjiu's small courtyard. Seeing her sitting in the courtyard, he asked, You were looking for me? And have a seat. She gestured for him to sit and poured a cup of tea. I wanted to tell you that I'm going back. As for the 3 spiritual herbs, you don't have to worry about them. I've already sent people to look for them. You're leaving. Hearing this, Zhuo Junyue was startled. There are some things I have to take care of. Your brother doesn't have enough herbs, so it's useless for me to stay. I'll be in 100 River City's Heavenly Pill House. When there's news, I'll send someone to inform you. She spoke slowly and took a sip of tea. And I understand. He nodded and held the teacup, but didn't drink it. Seeing this, she stood up and said, Then I'll go back to my room to rest. You don't have to send me off when I leave. With that, she walked into her room. Seeing this, Zhuo Junyue sat for a while and drank his tea before getting up and leaving. In the room, Fengjiu entered the space to cultivate. She only came out when the sky gradually darkened. She jumped onto the roof of the courtyard and used the Aurora transmission scroll to leave the Zhou family. Fengjiu, who was already able to control the Aurora transmission scroll well, left without anyone noticing when she left. There was no dazzling light when she teleported. They only knew that in the night the green figure quietly left. On a small path outside 100 River City, Fengjiu, dressed in green, silently appeared. Like a ghost, her body turned slightly and appeared in the small path. She looked up at the night sky and walked slowly. At this time, she couldn't enter the city gate. However, she remembered that there was an inn outside the city. It should be in this area. She could rest there first and enter the city tomorrow morning. It was late at night and there was no one on the path. Only the faint twinkling stars in the sky and the bright moon, half of which peeked out from behind the clouds, hung in the sky like a shy young girl. When the night wind blew, the rustling of leaves could be heard from the forest on the side. The night cicadas chirped. In this dark night it seemed a little strange. However, in such a place, she walked slowly and leisurely, as if she was admiring the stars and the moon. After walking for about a few hundred meters, a light vaguely appeared on the side of the road. She took a closer look and saw that it was indeed the inn. Thus, she quickened her pace and soon arrived outside the inn. Although it was late at night, there were still many people sitting around drinking and chatting on the first floor of the inn. There were also some people who were resting on the table. Compared to the quiet darkness outside, the inside was brightly lit and very lively. "This seat, please come in. Please come in." Seeing that another guest had entered, the waiter welcomed him with a smile and said, "There have been many guests these past few nights, so the rooms on the second floor are all empty. If young master doesn't mind, you can stay on the first floor for the night." She nodded and followed the waiter to a table inside. "Young master, the night is cold. Would you like a pot of hot wine and some wine to go with the dishes?" the waiter asked with a smile. "Sure," she said and indicated for him to prepare. Chapter 21:31. "Young master, if it's not enough, you can call me again," the waiter said and then left. She poured a glass of warm wine and took a sip. Then, she put down the glass and picked up her chopsticks to eat peanuts while sizing up the people on the first floor. After sizing them up, she noticed some problems. Other than some cultivators, most of these people were sick, especially a young woman in the corner. She was wearing plain clothes and was sitting on the ground in the corner with a 3-year-old child in her arms. It seemed that the shop owner was kind enough to let her and her child stay for the night. The child in the young woman's arms was pale and his little face was a little swollen. His clothes were wrapped up a lot, but he would still twitch occasionally. Seeing this, she called the waiter over. "Young master, do you have any orders?" The waiter came in front of her and asked, "What do that mother and son do?" She looked at the woman sitting on the ground in the corner and the child in her arms. The waiter followed Fengjiu's gaze and quickly said, "They're just passing by. This woman is quite pitiful. She said that because her child is seriously ill, she spent a lot of money to seek medical treatment, but it couldn't be cured. The doctor also said that the child won't be able to live for a few days. According to the woman, the child's father divorced her and she can't go back to her parents' home. She heard that the Heavenly Pill Building has a ghost doctor with great medical skills, so she wants to seek medical treatment." Speaking of this, the waiter smiled and said, "Our shopkeeper is a good person. Seeing that it's cold outside and this woman is carrying a 3-year-old child, he let her in to rest for the night. In any case, even if she squats in the corner, it's still better than outside." Hearing this, Fengjiu nodded and said to the waiter, "Go and invite her over." The waiter was stunned and didn't react for a moment. After Fengjiu said this, he realized that it was inappropriate, so he smiled and said, "I think they're quite pitiful. It's late at night and the temperature is dropping. It's cold to squat there, so I want to invite her over for a cup of warm wine. Moreover, I know a little about medicine, so I can help her take a look at her child." Hearing this, a smile appeared on the waiter's face. "Young master, you're so kind. I'll go and invite them over." The waiter walked towards the corner as he spoke. The young woman crouched in the corner with the child in her arms. When she heard the waiter's words, she looked at the green-robed young man sitting at the table with some surprise. Although he was a man, he was still a young man. Thus, she got up and followed the waiter. "Young master." The young woman hugged the child. Her lips were dry and pale. "Sit." Fengjiu gestured and poured her a glass of warm wine. "Drink a glass of wine to warm your body." "Thank you, young master." The young woman thanked him and carefully sat down at the table. She held the child in one hand and drank the wine with the other. Because she drank too much, she accidentally choked. Cough, cough. The woman quickly put down the wine cup in her hand and used her hand to cover her mouth as she coughed lightly. After drinking a mouthful of wine, she felt a burning sensation and her originally cold body gradually warmed up. She couldn't help but feel grateful to the young master in front of her. "This young woman thanks young master." She stood up again and bowed, thanking him. "Take out your child's hand. I'll take his pulse." Fengjiu gestured and looked at the child in the woman's arms. Chapter 2132. Fengjiu placed her finger on the child's pulse, and after a simple examination, she said, "This is wind convulsion, it's not a big problem." As she spoke, she withdrew her finger and took out the silver needles. "My medical skills are not bad, do you want me to give it a try?" The woman was slightly startled when she heard this, and for a moment, she held the child's hand tightly. Let him give it a try? Let the youth in front of her give it a try? Did he really know medical skills? What if something went wrong? Although she was worried, she also thought that since this youth was so kind-hearted, perhaps she should believe him this time. Thus, she said, "Young master, how do you want to try? Is there any danger? Those needles, where are you going to stab? Do you have to use these silver needles? The child is still so young, I'm worried." Hearing this, Fengjiu curled her lips into a smile. "I'm not treating anyone casually, I just happened to see you holding the child and squatting there. Your child is so young, so I wanted to help you. Up to you, if you don't want to, I won't force you." "No, no, young master's kindness, this woman is very grateful, but I don't know if young master can tell me the details of the child's illness?" she asked, thinking that if the youth could tell her, it would prove that he really knew medical skills. After all, the wind convulsion he mentioned was different from what the other doctors said, so she couldn't help but worry. The woman's cautious words made Fengjiu smile slightly. She looked at her and said, "Wind convulsion is also known as palpitations. People who suffer from this illness are extremely afraid of the cold, occasionally accompanied by slight twitching movements. When sleeping soundly at night, the patient will occasionally be startled awake, their heartbeat will accelerate, and they won't be able to fall asleep. If not treated in time, in less serious cases." She was interrupted before she could finish her sentence. "A young man like you is also learning to practice medicine here? Have you finished your apprenticeship? Do you have a doctor's badge?" A middle-aged man glanced at Fengjiu and snorted. "Do you think everyone has the ability to practice medicine? Or do you want to use this child as an experiment? What a vicious mind!" Fengjiu raised his eyebrows slightly and glanced at the man with a faint smile. When the young woman heard this and saw the doctor's badge pinned to the middle-aged man's chest, she couldn't help but take a few steps back with the child in her arms. She looked at Fengjiu warily. Obviously, she believed the middle-aged man's words. After all, the other party was a doctor with a doctor's badge, and the youth in front of her looked so young. Even many old doctors said that there was no way to treat the illness, so how could this youth really have the ability to treat it? Could it be that he really wanted to use her child as an experiment? When she thought of this, she cautiously retreated with the child in her arms and said, "This madam thanks the young master, but the child is my life. Please forgive this madam for not daring to try." As she spoke, she hurriedly retreated to the corner with the child in her arms. Seeing this, Fengjiu shook his head and smiled. She was really meddling in other people's business. Fine. She originally wanted to help treat her child because of the child's young age, but who knew that the other party wouldn't appreciate her kindness? Young lady, I see that you have some beauty. It's late at night and the cold wind outside is quite boring. If you let us brothers enjoy ourselves for a night, perhaps we'll even treat the child in your arms. How about it? A tall and thin man sitting next to the doctor said as his eyes stared at the young woman's pretty face. Chapter 21:33. She looked at the middle-aged men in horror and swallowed her saliva. She couldn't help but take a few steps back. Please don't joke around. How can a lowly woman like me stain your eyes? Ha 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 ha, third brother, don't joke around with a lowly woman like her. How can such a beauty catch our eyes? The other person laughed heartily. However, his gaze was fixed on the young woman. How could that blatant expression deceive the people seated on the first floor? The guests on the first floor were originally drinking and chatting or sleeping on the tables. When they heard their conversation, their gazes fell on them at this moment. Naturally, they could clearly see the expressions on the faces of those people. They glanced at the young woman. Her appearance could be considered delicate and pretty. Although she was wearing loose clothes, her voluptuous figure couldn't fool these men. What do you mean by this beauty can't catch their eyes? They thought that this wasn't a matter of whether she could catch their eyes or not. It was probably because they couldn't go overboard in front of so many people. Who knows, they might just kidnap this woman later. It was none of their business. Since they had seen it, they wouldn't meddle in other people's business and cause trouble. Thus, everyone averted their gazes and continued drinking and chatting. In the corner, Fengjiu supported her cheek with one hand and played with her wine glass with the other. She looked at this scene with a smile on her lips. She took a sip of wine, put down the glass, and picked up a piece of marinated beef to eat. She didn't want to cause trouble, but the people at the other table drank a few glasses of wine. Not only did their voices become louder, one of them even walked towards her with a wine glass. As the man approached, the smell of alcohol hit her in the face. She couldn't help but frown. Before she could say anything, the man reached out and hugged her shoulder. Seeing this, she waved the chopsticks in her hand. Slap! Hiss! The chopsticks hit the man's wrist, causing him to suck in a breath of cold air in pain. He retracted his hand and glared at the young man who was drinking wine. You brat, how dare you hit me? As soon as he finished cursing, he threw a punch at Fengjiu. Fengjiu didn't even look at him. He used the chopsticks in his hand to hit the man's acupoint. The man's face changed and his figure suddenly retreated. For a moment, not only could he not speak, but he also couldn't breathe. Second brother? What happened? When the other three saw him standing there without moving for a long time and his body was still stiff, they couldn't help but quickly step forward. The man finally managed to catch his breath. He pointed at the young man in green who was drinking and said, "Take care of this brat." As soon as he finished speaking, he stepped forward again. Fengjiu glanced at the four people who were pouncing on him. The corners of his lips curled up, and the chopsticks in his hand shot out. With a swoosh, a sharp gust of air rushed out, and in the next moment, a shrill scream rang out. Ah! There was a chopstick stuck in the calf of the person who had pounced forward. The chopstick had pierced through, causing blood to seep out. The person crouched down and retreated. Second brother! One of them exclaimed as he looked at the chopsticks that had pierced through him. He could not help but turn around to look at the youth with a relaxed expression. Chapter 21:34. These people were not weak, and one of them was even a doctor. Because of this, they did not want to get involved and cause trouble. However, this young man was quite courageous. He actually dared to challenge four people alone, and he even looked so relaxed. It was obvious that his strength was above the four of them. Kill him! The other three people were enraged. They pulled out their weapons and charged forward. However, before one of them could get close to Fengjiu, he was kicked away. He fell to the ground and cried out in pain. Seeing that the fight had started and that his inn's things had been destroyed, the innkeeper could not help but run out and shout, "Hey, stop fighting, stop fighting!" However, no one listened to him and stopped. Instead, they picked up things and threw them at Fengjiu. Seeing those things being thrown at her, she frowned and glanced at those people. She slammed her hand on the table, and several chopsticks flew up from the chopstick holder on the table. With a whoosh, they all attacked the four people at the same time. Ah! Shrill screams came from the four people. The four people's legs were pierced by the chopstick. One by one, they knelt down and could not even stand. Still want to fight? Fengjiu played with the wine cup in her hand and glanced at the four people. No, no more, no more. Please spare our lives, young master. We were blind and did not recognize Mount Tai. The four people hurriedly begged for mercy. They lowered their heads and looked at each other, communicating with their eyes. A light flashed in their eyes. As the four of them begged for mercy, they suddenly leaped up, and something from their sleeves sprayed towards Fengjiu. At this moment, a cold glint flashed through Fengjiu's eyes, and she flicked her sleeve to brush away the medicine that was sprayed towards her. At the same time, 4 chopsticks flew out at the same time, and with a whoosh they pierced through the space between the 4 people's brows, leaving behind 4 small holes that flowed with blood. This sudden scene caused the hearts of everyone watching to tighten. When they saw the green-robed young man show mercy and the 4 people begging for mercy, they thought that they would stop fighting. They didn't expect that the 4 people still wanted to throw the medicine at the green-robed young man. They also didn't expect that at that moment, the green-robed young man would directly kill the 4 people when he brushed the medicine away. In this world where the strong were respected, there was a price to pay for offending a strong person. Not to mention, after the other party showed mercy, they still launched a sneak attack. As for the young man in green killing the 4 people, they were only shocked by his skills. They felt that it was natural for him to kill the 4 people. The innkeeper was also a person with cultivation. Although his cultivation was not high, when he saw this scene, his face turned pale. He was speechless for a while. Innkeeper! Yes, yes. The shopkeeper quickly came back to his senses and came in front of Fengjiu. He carefully looked at the green-robed young master. Yes, yes. The innkeeper hurried forward and brought the weapons, qiankuan bags, and space rings of the 4 people to the table where Fengjiu was and placed them in front of her. Young master, it's all here. He wiped the cold sweat from his forehead. He had been running the inn for some time and had changed the items in the inn countless times. It seemed that he had wasted his time doing business for the past few days. Chapter 21:35. Fengjiu pushed the weapons of the 4 people in front of him and gave him some gold coins to clean up the mess. Hearing this, the shopkeeper was slightly surprised. He looked at the 4 weapons on the table and asked with uncertainty, "Young master, you're giving them to me? Even if these 4 weapons were sold, they could be sold for quite a bit of money. There for you." Fengjiu raised his wine cup and drank the wine. "Thank you, young master, thank you, young master." The shopkeeper was instantly overjoyed. After putting away the items, he called the waiter and the 2 of them dragged the corpses to the back to bury them. Then he cleaned up the first floor and finally gave Fengjiu a pot of hot wine. "Young master, please drink and eat. If it's not enough, there's more," the shopkeeper said with a smile. After giving the items, he left. The young married woman sitting in the corner with the child in her arms saw this scene and couldn't help but hesitate. This young master was so powerful. Could it be that he really had the ability? Could it be that his medical skills were really that good? Thinking of this, she couldn't help but feel worried. After hesitating, she walked forward with the child in her arms. "Young master, Feng Jiu raised his brows and looked at the young married woman in front of him. Young master, can you take a look at my child? She gathered her courage and thought about it. This young master had asked her to let him treat the child, but she refused. Now that she brought the child to him to treat him, he wouldn't refuse, right? However, she thought too highly of herself and underestimated others. Naturally, she missed the opportunity. A smile appeared on the corners of Feng Jiu's mouth when she heard this. She took a sip of wine and said, "You refused me when I wanted to save your child. Since that's the case, you can go find someone else. I'm not in the mood right now." The young married woman froze and said, "Young master, this young married woman didn't know young master had the ability. I was just worried about my child. There's only one chance. Since you've missed it, then so be it. What happens in the future is your business. What does it have to do with me?" She said casually and didn't look at the married woman. "Young master can really cure my child?" The married woman heard his words and couldn't help asking. Because this young man had a confident look on his face and spoke as if this illness wasn't a big problem for him. Feng Jiu smiled and ate the peanuts as if the woman in front of him was invisible. "Young master, saving a life is more meritorious than building a 7-storied pagoda. Please save my child." She knelt down with the child in her arms and begged. Looking at the young woman kneeling on the ground, Feng Jiu played with the wine glass and asked, "Do you have money?" The young woman took out some pieces of silver. "I only have this much." "Then do you have any 500-year-old spiritual herbs?" Feng Jiu asked again in a casual tone, as if they were chatting. "No." The young woman shook her head. Hearing this, Feng Jiu curled his lips into a smile. "If you don't have money or medicine, how are you going to seek treatment? How about this? Kowtow to me 1,000 times first. Maybe if I'm in a good mood, I'll take a look at your child." Hearing this, resentment appeared in the young woman's eyes. "Young master, since you know medicine, why aren't you willing to save him? Didn't you want me to give my son to you to treat? Now that I'm willing to let you treat my child, why are you making things difficult for me? A doctor has the heart of a parent. How can you not save him?" Chapter 2136. What kind of twisted logic was this? She would be saved just because she knew medicine? Could it be that rich people had to give their money to poor people? Could it be that this woman had forgotten that she was the one who had rejected the green-clothed youth's good intentions? Now that the green-clothed youth did not save her, she was blaming him? Moreover, the youth had asked her to kowtow 1,000 times to see her sincerity. She had no money and no items, so she wanted to ask someone to save her with a few words? How could there be such a cheap thing in this world? Not only did the guests on the first and second floors frown, even the shopkeeper and the waiter felt that this young woman was wrong. Previously, they pitied her and let her in to rest for the night. Who knew that this woman was not a grateful person? They could see that if the green-clothed young master had not killed those people, this young woman would have fallen into the hands of those 4 people in the end. It was also because they could see that they were dissatisfied with this woman's resentful words. How could a person be so greedy and unsatisfied, and not know what was good for them? When Feng Jiu heard the young woman's words, he was not angry. He only smiled and ignored her as he drank his wine. He allowed the woman to kneel there and did not ask her to get up. The woman seemed to have a plan. She felt that if she knelt here, this young man would definitely not be able to stand everyone's gazes and agree to treat her child. Unfortunately, her calculations were wrong. Feng Jiu drank his wine and ate his meat in satisfaction. The woman knelt in front of the table and smelled the fragrance of the wine and meat, but she only watched. She could not help but swallow her saliva. Seeing that the youth ignored her and that her knees were sore from kneeling, she carried the child with one hand and supported herself on the chair with the other to stand up. She did not leave. Instead, she pulled open the table and prepared to sit down. However, when Feng Jiu saw this scene, He flicked his finger and a stream of air attacked. The chair retreated, and the woman who was about to sit down sat on nothing. She fell to the ground in a sorry state. Ouch! She cried out in pain and hugged the child in her arms tightly. The grievances, anger, and resentment in her heart all surged out. For a moment she actually forgot who the person in front of her was. Why did you push the chair away and cause me to fall? You're so vicious. Do you want to kill me? Previously, she had knelt down and begged for mercy, and now she had fallen. Thinking of being abandoned by her husband and having no home to return to, thinking of the child in her arms who was seriously ill and could not be cured, all the grievances, anger, and resentment in her heart burst out at this moment. Fengjiu stood up and walked towards her step by step. At this time, she was slightly angered. There was no smile on her handsome face, and her clear eyes were as cold as ice. Her voice was filled with ridicule as she said, "Did I ask you to sit down? Who are you? Are you worthy to sit with me?" The young woman was frightened by Fengjiu's cold face, but when she saw the young man's mocking gaze and expression, she couldn't help but feel embarrassed and angry. She said, "You even invited me to drink before. That was because I was in a good mood earlier, so I allowed you to sit. But now I'm not allowing you to sit." She sneered and looked down at the young woman who was sitting on the ground. "You don't know who you are and you dare to shout in front of me?" Chapter 21:37. How can you do this? How can you do this? If you chase me out in the middle of the night, what if we encounter danger? You can't chase us out. The young woman shouted and refused to leave. However, she was no match for the waiter's pull and was eventually pulled out of the inn. However, just as the waiter walked back, the young woman followed him again. "How can you chase me away? My child is still sick. What if he catches a cold and his condition worsens? Let me in, I'll sit in the corner, I won't get in the way of the other guests." The waiter pushed her. "You haven't obstructed the other guests yet. The young master was drinking and sitting there properly. You went up to provoke him and sat at his table without saying a word. You even pointed at his nose and scolded him. I only let you in because you were pitiful, but I didn't expect you to be such an ungrateful person. Go far away." The young woman staggered back a few steps. Seeing the door of the inn close and that she could no longer enter, she stood outside and cursed loudly. "Are you just trying to curry favor with that cyan-robed young master because he's a young master from an aristocratic family? How can you be like this? I'm alone with a sick child, and my husband doesn't want me anymore. I'm homeless, and now even you want to chase me away. Aren't you guys too cold-blooded?" When the waiter heard those words from inside, he also scolded angrily. "Ingrate, heartless, ungrateful, you deserve it." Fengjiu listened to the voices outside and did not say anything. He only played with his cup, thinking about something. The guests on the first and second floors did not plead for the woman. They only drank and chatted until the sky gradually brightened and the city gates opened. Only then did the people in the inn leave one after another. At this time, in front of the Heavenly Dan building, the young woman who was chased out of the inn last night was kneeling in front of the door with her child in her arms. "I beg you, let me see the ghost doctor. My child is very sick, please save him, ghost doctor." She kowtowed and said, "I heard that there is a ghost doctor in the Heavenly Dan building who is very skilled in medicine, so I specially came from a faraway place. In order to treat the child's illness, the family's money was spent, and my husband also divorced me and chased me out. Now I have nothing left, only my child. I beg you, please save my child." She hugged her child and knelt in front of the entrance of the Heavenly Dan building, crying and begging. She also talked about her miserable experiences along the way, causing a large group of people to gather in front of the Heavenly Dan building. Outside the Heavenly Dan building, Yang Xiao'er, after hearing the woman's words, he couldn't help but walk inside and come to Ling Hua and Du Fan's side. "Big brother Ling Hua, Big brother Du, big brother Ling Hua. Ling Hua and Du Fan were drinking tea at a side table on the first floor. After hearing Yang Xiao-er's words, the two looked at each other and smiled. Du Fan said, "There are many pitiful people in this world. How is this woman pitiful? I don't feel it. But she said that her child is very sick. I saw it too. Her child's face is very pale. In the end, she still couldn't bear it. After all, the child was so young. What if he really had a serious illness? Wouldn't it be too heartless to just leave it be?" Chapter 2138. What do you mean? She was slightly startled. She tilted her head and looked at him with a pair of puzzled eyes. She did not quite understand. This woman came to seek medical treatment, but she directly knelt down outside the Heavenly Pill building and cried and begged. It's fine if she just cried and begged, but she also talked about her miserable experience in order to gain sympathy. Ling Hua smiled gently, looked at Yang Xiao-er and said, "On one hand she was begging, and on the other hand she was forcing us. She made herself sound so miserable, helpless, and seriously ill. If we don't save her, we will end up being criticized for being cold-blooded. I think she expected that our Heavenly Pill building, which is such a big place, would definitely value reputation and face. That's why she directly used the sympathy of the people outside to help her achieve her goal." At this point Ling Hua smiled. "We don't agree with this woman's methods of doing things, so we ignored her and didn't plan to save her." "That's right." Du Fan, who was next to him, nodded while waving his fan. Although they also had a little bit of compassion, they looked down on and disliked such people. This kind of person came to seek medical treatment. Even if their master was here, they would not let her see their master, not to mention that their master was not here. Yang Xiao only understood after hearing their words. She could not help but widen her eyes in surprise and astonishment. There are actually so many twists and turns in seeking medical treatment? If you don't tell me, I won't understand. Hearing this, the two of them could not help but laugh and shake their heads secretly. She was straightforward by nature, so how could she know these schemes? "Brother Ling Hua, brother Du, no wonder Sister Feng made you two stewards. You are really too amazing." She looked at the two of them with admiration, thinking that they were so smart. Her gaze could not help but quietly fall on Ling Hua. She thought to herself that if she could marry brother Ling Hua, she would definitely be very happy. She would not have to worry about anything. She couldn't help but ask, "But this person is holding a child and kneeling outside. I took a look just now and there are a lot of people surrounding them. Are we just going to ignore it? Our Heavenly Pill building has always had its own set of rules. Since she wants to kneel, then let her kneel. There's no need to pay attention to her," Du Fan said while waving his fan. Hearing this, Yang Xiao left first, not bothering the two of them. She ran to the door to take a look. She saw that the young woman was not very old and was quite pretty. How could she think of such twisted things? From the looks of it, they did not intend to interfere. This woman was kneeling here with the child in her arms for nothing. After Yang Xiao left, Du Fan said, "Ling Hua, master should be back in 2 days." However, there is still no news from the black market. Do you think the president of the black market will come to our Heavenly Dan building? If what the news says is true, then he will definitely come. Other than master, who else can he trust right now? Only here can he be safe. However, we don't know how serious his situation is. If his life is really hanging by a thread, I'm afraid. The black market owner is so strong, but he was injured to such an extent. It can be seen that his enemy is very strong. I am a little worried. If master gets involved, I don't know if he will get into trouble. Du Fan's eyes were filled with worry. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.